Florida State football, of course, loses some of the all-time greats from a 2023 team that won the ACC championship. Of course, look at this. Look at this guy. We got Logan Robinson here. Noel game day, Bucks game day to break down the offense and the defense for us. And of course, Logan, we've done this a few times.
We have every year, I feel like, since we kind of began a couple years ago on this. And we went through a really fun season last year. We were having some high expectations this time last year going into the squad that eventually won an ACC championship. But like you said, there's a lot of studs on this team, both offensively and defensively, that they've lost, and there's going to have to be some guys that step up. But I appreciate you, Mark, always inviting me on here. It's spring football, one of my favorite times of the year. We get to find out who's going to take that next step, and FSU needs a few guys to do so.
All right, good to have Logan here. Here we go. Quarterback position, of course. Before we move on to 2024, Jordan Travis, of course, we've seen him from the very beginning when he transferred in, took over the job, had some rough patches, had to learn the position, develop his skills as a passer, and now he walks off as a legend.
He was a legend, and he's going to stay a legend in Tallahassee just because of how you said he developed and became a better quarterback year by year. And he came in from Louisville, guy that at first we all thought was just a running quarterback. How is he going to get the ball to these wide receivers? And he did a good job of gaining the respect from his teammates. He wasn't the biggest vocal guy, but he had to turn into a leader. And Mike Norvell coming in during his first year, looked at Jordan Travis and eventually gave him more of an opportunity. He wasn't expected to be the starter right away, and Mike Norvell believed in him. And now to see him with Coach Tokars and what they were able to do developmental wise in the passing game was huge. And I remember talking on your show a while back of how he was going to be connecting with his wide receivers, deep, intermediate routes, accuracy. Those are all things that we were critiquing him on early on in his FSU career. And the season that he was having, kind of a slower start, was a little hindered at the beginning of the season. I don't think he was fully healthy, but once we got into that middle part of the season, then definitely the latter half before he got injured at the North Alabama game, he was cooking and he was really looking good out there. And at the time was a Heisman contender. I think a lot of people forget that. And obviously it showed too when we, went through the college football playoff and Florida State didn't get invited. The main reason for that was Jordan Travis not being available. If Jordan Travis is available on this team, 125% Florida State goes to college football playoff. So that's how much he meant to the team and everything. And it just so happened Florida State, that was the excuse for the playoff committee, along with a lot of media members out there. And so Jordan Travis, I think FSU fans are going to miss him this upcoming season. We know we got a vet coming in that we'll talk about here in a second, but Jordan Travis, super fun player to watch as just a fan of you with college football, Mark. I know just watching him as a player, super fun on the field, but as a guy in the community, someone that represented Florida State well, I mean, there's not anything better that you can get. And something that Florida State fans needed from a quarterback after going through a handful of guys that had a lot of roller coaster rides, both on the field and off the field.
Yeah, so we get to the next guy, and in college football these days, what comes around goes around. So a guy that was quarterbacking for what was at the time the best team and the best program in the conference, and facing Florida State a couple years later after a pit stop, all the way across the country in Corvallis, Oregon, shows up. And so this is a very familiar name to Florida State fans, DJ Uiagalelei, that we all had to learn to pronounce a couple years ago. But man, he is a cagey old veteran at this point. And who would have thought, if we would have talked about this like 2 or 3 years ago, DJ is going to be Florida State starting quarterback, that would have been crazy.
It's freaky. It is absolutely freaky to think of. And having that time with Dabo Swinney, things didn't work out as planned there. Gets a chance at Oregon State. Does some things really nicely statistically, had some highlight plays there, and put up a lot of wins for them as well in this last season. But now gets the opportunity to come down to Florida State, which, as we know, Florida State and Clemson, that has turned into a rivalry. And now he'll be able to face them this upcoming season at home. And Doak Campbell Stadium, expected to be most likely a primetime matchup, 8 o'clock kickoff. And that's got to be super exciting for DJ. he's a guy that, from what I've heard so far, arriving on campus, not the most talkative guy, kind of how Jordan Travis was when he first arrived. And I don't think that's something that Mike Norvell is expecting him to be, definitely in a short time span that DJ is going to be in Tallahassee. The biggest thing is earning the respect on the field, and hearing a lot of positive things about him so far, just and the way that he was in workouts and the way that he was going about representing himself and getting to know a lot of the teammates. That's just exactly what you expect from where, Mike Norvell has found most of his success in the transfer portal, bringing in guys that mesh really well in that locker room. That means a lot in building the culture, and that Florida State continues to work on. But DJ fits that mold, and now it's just earning that respect on the field and seeing where things go. Is this a quarterback competition? Is he coming into a quarterback competition? That's not been something that is solidified from, Mike Norvell. It's definitely still where, we'll talk about him. Brock Lynn going into his second year, he's going to get an opportunity with those first team reps in spring camp. But, where is DJ going to sit in all of this? And I think for Florida State, I think you're in a pretty good spot to where you like DJ coming in with his veteran leadership, his play, understanding the college scheme, defense, reading defenses. I think that helps a lot with what you've got in the younger room and that quarterback room after losing AJ Duffy and obviously Tate Rodemaker in that transfer portal. You've got some really serious young talent, and then you've got a veteran that's been in the college game for multiple years at the starting position. So this gives, I think, Florida State a really good opportunity to have these younger guys learn behind DJ, who has a really strong arm and is someone that hopefully can build that chemistry in a little short bit of time before we get to fall camp.
You mentioned the strong arm. Yeah, he came into college football as a 5-star. A lot was expected of him. He had 2 starts in relief of Trevor Lawrence, and he lit it up. So then the expectations were, through the roof, and he didn't necessarily hit those. He hit 57% of his passes last year. He's not necessarily been a high percentage player at quarterback. He's a runner like Jordan Travis, but a much different runner. He's just a big dude that will knock over safeties and linebackers in the open field. So just a bit of a different player, but in some aspects, he's similar to Jordan Travis in that he still is developing the passing skills and he provides that running threat.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest question mark this spring camp, and definitely if we go into that game in Ireland. I'm watching really the offensive line. They've got to step up a little bit here, because you go back to Jordan Travis's play, 210 pounds compared to now DJ. He's added on 10 pounds, 255. That's bigger than Ben Roethlisberger, my guy back there, former great with the Steelers. That's 10 more pounds than what Big Ben was playing with. Yeah, a lot more athletic weight, I will say, than Big Ben, and he can run. Big Ben was not having any part of that if he didn't have to, but still, the offensive line, at least starting off in seasons for FSU the last couple of years, kind of takes a couple games, takes about 3 games or so for them to find a rhythm there. And luckily, you do have a lot of veterans coming back on that offensive line, but they've got to be able to protect DJ, because they're going to, I would expect for this offense, the scheme's going to change a little bit behind DJ if they, expect to go with him heading into Ireland. It's going to change a little bit, because Jordan Travis was so evasive. He was so elusive. He could get out of those situations where you'd have pass rushers already in the backfield. Sometimes if there has been some miscommunications on the front line, Jordan Travis could save those plays. That's why he was a contending Heisman quarterback. So that's something I'm going to be monitoring. This offensive line's got to stick. And talking with Coach Atkins at the media luncheon to kick off spring, that's something that I think they want to be more solidified at the front, instead of having a kind of revolving door with changing up guys and the way they're running the scheme. And, luckily, you have some hybrid offensive linemen, but you've got to protect DJ and allow him to use that arm, because that's what he's talented at. And he's got to improve too, like you're saying, as a passer. And he's still someone that needs to be developed, but he's just not going to be the same guy that you had Jordan Travis wise, running wise. Downhill, that's a whole different player. Yeah, he's really impactful there, and he damages defenses that way, but he's not your best guy and saving plays whenever things are getting disrupted through that front line. So that's something that I'm going to be monitoring as we go into the rest of this spring camp, but this fall camp, and seeing how this offensive line is predicated in protecting DJ.
So, of course, Logan, we got a chance to see, as you mentioned, Brock Glenn down the stretch last year
Mhm.
when Travis went down. Your thoughts about how he performed, what he needs to work on, what kind of player he is, and maybe what kind of shot he has to pull off the upset and win the job.
Could you imagine? Yeah, Brock Glenn, someone that we didn't expect to see any of last year whatsoever. Former Ohio State commit, and Florida State brings him over and says, "Oh, you're coming. You're flipping over here to Florida State and Coach Tokars." And I really liked what I saw from Brock Glenn and the time that we had him early on. I mean, the Florida game, you can't grade anything from that. You're thrown into the fire, but I just liked the courage and the mindset of let's don't sit here and think about it or get worried. Let's go out there and try to make a play. And as a true freshman, that's really intriguing to me, and you feel really good about him and his mental state. That's what I look at first, mental state of the player. The other things that can be developed. Coach Tokars has done a really good job. What we saw with Jordan Travis, but also to Tate Rodemaker, developing him as a player, as a guy reading defenses, and of course developing with the arm. But that thing will take care of itself. But then we also saw the growth from him going from that Florida game, saw some things there in the ACC championship with some growth. But more importantly, once he had more time, because if you think about it, he only had another week, and then you're thrown into the fire against one of the top defenses at that time with Louisville, who was really impressive. Um, they only had a week of that in preparation, and two, you thought, all right, well, Tate Rodemaker, is he going to be able to play and all that? That whole kind of quarterback situation was all up in the air. So now you have more time going into the Orange Bowl. I thought we saw some strides with him. You're facing Georgia. I mean, you're facing the Georgia Bulldogs. You're facing Kirby Smart. I want nothing to do with it. But Brock Glenn goes out there and he keeps that same mindset, and it's a game to be played. He's going out there to play, and we saw some strides be made. And I thought growth wise, that stood out to me. And this kid can be developed, which is good, and it creates for a really impressive quarterback room. And we'll talk about Luke Kromenhoek, the new true freshman. I think this. I named Brock Glenn as probably being one of the most improved players this spring camp, just because the way that he listens well and he does a good job of understanding things and learning from his mistakes. And we saw that from game, and those three that we saw him in to finish off that 2023 season.